We'll now call the meeting to order, and the time is 5:02 p.m. We'll now proceed with item number 2, approval of the agenda. That the agenda for the Committee of Adjustment meeting of Monday, March 25th, 2024 be approved as presented. Do I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as presented? Louis? All in favor? Motion carried. Are there any declarations of interest? Item 4.1 is a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on November 30th, 2023. The recommendation reads that the Committee of Adjustment minutes dated November 30th, 2023 be accepted as presented. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this motion? Thank you. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
I didn't see anything wrong with it.
No.
Nothing, ma'am.
Okay. Then I will call the question. All in favor? Okay. Motion is carried. Item 5.1 is a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment approve the following severance. The recommendation reads that the Committee of Adjustment approve the proposed consent application SEV 2024-001 subject to the following conditions. The balance of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, and any local improvement charges, if applicable, shall be paid to the town. That the plan, when submitted, shall show that the existing structure meets the required side yard setbacks as per the zoning bylaw 2009-09. And that the developer service each lot independently, including the costs involved, including installing a driveway and town services to the property line. An acceptable reference plan or legal description of the severed lands and the deed or instrument conveying the severed lands demonstrating the new property lines for both properties shall be registered and submitted to the town. Do I have a mover and a seconder for discussion purposes? Craig, Louis? Sean Merriman, Manager of Building and Bylaw, will speak to the report. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property is located on Dibble Street West and is known as the civic address of 513. This subject property is in an established neighborhood that was constructed in the 1850s, and the lot actually consists of 2 lots in the original plan for the town. The property is of adequate size and frontage to allow for the lot to be split and to create 2 lots, each lot capable of supporting a single-family dwelling or other uses as per the zoning bylaw. This consent, if approved, will create a new dwelling lot within the town for an additional infill development. The new lot at minimum will be 13 meters of frontage or 42.7 feet wide and 38 meters or 126 feet long. The minimum lot width for a single detached dwelling is 13 meters, although this one will probably be closer to 50 when it's done. And again, you need well over the lot size for the total lot needed. The only concern that had with this is where the current house is located, which will end up staying on the retained parcel. And so when the survey is done, they will have to demonstrate there's at least 1.2 meters side yard setback to the lot line from the existing house and then the frontage that's left over. This severance is, they've simply given us a sketch diagram until they see how the committee found, at which point they will go out and get a proper survey and stuff like that. They will also be required to make sure that the driveway fits in at an appropriate place with operations around our infrastructure. And they will have to do the work that's necessary to make that happen, meaning that they'll have to cut the sidewalks, replace it with the up and down, and then also bring water and sewer to the edge of the property line so that it can be hooked up properly at that time. Under the regulatory review under provincial policy statement, as per provincial policy statement 2020, The lot meets all the requirements of it. It's in the proposed settlement area designation. It's under the area, including in the new official plan for residential use. It's use that will allow us to maximize the use of existing infrastructure, so we don't have to place any more sewer water lines in the road. And this is the intent of the provincial policy statement, to make sure that we're utilizing all our services and infrastructure completely as much as possible. This property was posted with the requirements both on the property and on the town website. It was also had all neighbors notified within 60 meters of the development. And we also circulated it to all town departments and received no concerns from any of the town departments. Therefore, the staff recommendation is for it to be approved with the conditions outlined. I do see that the applicants are here. Should anyone have questions of them?
Okay. Thank you. Is there any discussion on item 5.1?
Question.
Your name, please, sir? May I have your
The
name?
lot will be surveyed when it's severed.
Pardon me?
The lot will be surveyed when it's severed.
Correct, that's one of the conditions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the side yard setback if a built structure is going on?
Again, 1.2 meter, like on the new lot, 1.2 meters to one side and 2.4 meters on the other. But because it's so wide, there should be no problem and long meeting those requirements.
Oh, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure when it's surveyed, you'll find that lot goes within a foot of my house. I live at 529 Dibble.
Mr. Burnside.
Yeah, no problem. But again, they will still have to stay at least 1.2 meters back from the lot line,
What's that in?
4 feet.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, at a minimum, we'll have 5 feet between the houses.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, what was your name, please?
Robert Burnside?
Robert Burnside, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion?
I'd like to make a comment if I could. I'm fully in favor of this. I think this is what council's looking for. I'm Lee McConnell, by the way.
Yeah.
Council. I just have one suggestion, which I would like to see put into every one of these severances for this type of thing that we had before. We had 2 semis built on St. Lawrence Street, north of Jessup. And the sidewalk was cut out for each one, and as you just mentioned, it had to be done. It was replaced by the contractor in each case, and the cement was of substandard quality. And they had to be replaced within 2 years, which we have done. Whenever we have sidewalks cut because of this, we do sidewalks every year. I would like to see they have to pay for the town contractor with the same cement to replace those sections.
That's the requirement, Lee.
And
I've never gave approval.
It wasn't done on St. Lawrence Street.
Okay. But yeah,
They
no,
were replaced last year and they were all problems.
yeah, all I can speak to is when they come in for the final, one of the things we go through is the fact that the sidewalk's been properly cut by the town contractor and replaced.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Questions? I'll now call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 5.2 is a minor variance application for consent application for 198 Georgina Street and 898 Florence Street. I have a recommendation that reads that the Committee of Adjustment approve the minor variances MV 2024-001 for property 898 Florence Street and MV 2024-002 for 198 Georgina Street with the following conditions. The balance, if any, of outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, shall be paid to the town of Prescott. That all permits and fees for the construction of proposed residential self-storage units be adhered to and fees required submitted. And that the existing drainage patterns be maintained. That the project uses a surveyor to pin the location of the buildings and to complete a survey showing all structures and setbacks on both properties prior to use of the new self-storage buildings. That the developer at their expense registers site plan control bylaw upon the property of which condition 3 will be an attached schedule to that bylaw. And that the developer shall construct a privacy fence along the eastern property lines for both properties at a minimum of 2.5 meters or 8 feet in height and be registered upon the site plan control agreement. Do I have a mover and a seconder for discussion purposes? Okay, thank you. And Sean Merriman, Manager of Building and Bylaw, will speak to the report. Mr. Merriman.
Through you, Madam Chair. These two properties are being, although they're separate properties, are being presented to the committee as one project. Simply for the reason that they're interconnected so intensively that you have to consider both together in order for it to make sense. So these subject properties are on the northeast end of Florence Street and just south of the tracks, and the northeast end of Georgina. Kind of makes like an L-shaped pattern when you see them on the lot. These properties are currently zoned M2, which is light industrial, and represent an area of Prescott that has been historically industrial in nature and lie just, like I said, south of the main CN line railroad track. These lots have been utilized as a private construction yard for numerous years. And before that, as I understand it, it was used as the public works yards for the town of Prescott. The legal description for the lots is listed in the report. And in the official plan, this is a little unique in that the official plan actually recognizes this area as R1 special policy area, meaning that the Hyde and Wood Streets, the area along the north side of the tracks, in time is thought that it's going to become more residential in nature or mixed use in nature than solely industrial. However, the existing industrial uses and zoning is allowed to be implemented in the zoning bylaw. So that's why you end up with a zone of M2, even though the official plan recognizes it as R1. And not with going the special policy, it's very clear that it states that any current use that's being used on these property can continue, and it can be developed, and it can be utilized, and it can be expanded. So that's where the official plan falls on it. So the official plan says in time it may become residential, but until then, we are more than allowed to allow the uses to continue, especially if those uses are something that may actually work in the future towards pushing it towards residential. So in this case, the developer or the owner, Mr. Beck, that is here this evening, is suggesting that we put in a row of self-storage units, of which one row is on the Georgina property, a small break, and then the rest of them on the Florence Street property. And this is actually probably a really good use for them, because if we ever develop the area into the thing, this is one of those mixed uses that would still have use to a residential area. So basically, when you take a look at the proposed development and the sketch that has been provided, you can see that these self-storage units are going to end up going along the eastern side of the lot. And because of the way where frontage is, because on the one it's off Florence and the one it's off Georgina, in one case you're looking for relief on the front yard setback and because it's off Georgina, and the other one you're looking for relief off the interior side yard because it's Florence. And the same thing where the two buildings come together. In one case, you're looking at a rear yard setback, and then the other one, you're looking at it from the other direction as an interior side yard setback. So although there is quite a large decrease from the normal setbacks, it very much is still in keeping with the intent and integrity of the use of the land and looking at it as one project versus two separate properties coming forward. It was circulated to all the departments, including economic development and fire, to consider that. And the requests that came through the various different things included the fact that a privacy fence along the what's currently I believe it's a soccer field, or is it a ballpark, that one, on that side be increased so that the self-storage units are not seen as easily. And it's actually put into the thing that it becomes part of the site plan. So the fence has to be maintained in perpetuity so that it'll always be there and always in good shape. And then also the other thing, because it is light industrial, that it enter into site plan control and that the drainage patterns are maintained. And right now the drainage, the way it works is it all heads towards the CN tracks and catches the ditch on that side of the CN tracks. So the property was posted. The property was posted also on our website. All the people within 60 meters was also mailed, including CN Rail. We have not received anything from CN that they had any concerns with it as of tonight's meeting. And so therefore, staff is recommending that it be approved with the conditions that were placed upon the property. I do see the developer is here this evening, should you have any questions of him. And if you have any more questions of myself.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, through you, Sean, you said about CN, but did any of the neighbors have any comments or advice?
As of today, I have not received a single request. You have to remember that area. I'm going to get the name wrong. I believe it's DC Snelling Contracting is actually across the road. And then from what I can tell from the developer, there's only 2 or 3 other neighbors that would really be affected by this at all, to the best of my knowledge.
And
All I can tell you is they haven't reached out to me.
it was against the soccer field, didn't it?
Yeah, it'll go against that public park on that side.
That's good. An 8-foot fence will help keep the balls on the right side.
Yeah, especially if, there's no guarantee what it'll be in the future, but even if it turned into residential, that fence will help mitigate a lot of concerns.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Sean, the sketch on page 24, could you go over what's existing there right now? And I see 4 sea cans on the east, the structures along the railroad. What type of structures are those, Sean?
Okay, so working from west to east, the very back one off Florence, that is actually the old repair garage for the public works, and the main garage that Mr. Beck still used for his construction equipment. The next one beside it is a coverall building. It used to be a building that held, it used to be an actual shed that held sand. Now it's a fabric covered structure that holds sand and ice, sand and salt. Then the other building up front is an older building that's used mainly for storage, and the same with the sea cans.
So they will all stay, the buildings will all stay, and along the,
For the time being.
Yeah, he may redevelop
For the
it.
time being, the old building isn't worth fixing. I know, guys need to have a look at it. It's not really worth fixing. So, in the future, I was thinking it would come down. The 4 sea camp belongs to DC Snelling, and they'll move them. If need be. Eventually, they would have to move them.
thank you. If I may, Chair, one further question to Sean. So the structures along the rail corridor are all new? No, those are all existing as well?
Correct.
That's these structures?
Yeah, these structures here. Oh, no, this is what is proposed.
That's what's proposed. So what type of structures are those?
They are going to be self-storage for residential self-storage. Like I said, they're all and I'm probably gonna get it wrong, 15 feet,
10 by 15.
10 by 15 feet. And the break in the middle is so that the building doesn't end up on the property line.
So those are on a cement pad, aluminum.
Yes,
Yes.
it'll be probably cement pad and it'll either be wooden or steel construction.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other discussion? Questions? No? Yes?
A rather lengthy comment, if you don't mind. I've talked to Kenny about this a couple times, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm surprised and a little upset that this has not come before council before. As Sean
Yes.
has mentioned,
Mr. McConnell, if you're here as a private citizen, that's fine, but as a member of council, you can't speak to the item
why,
because committee of adjustment isn't influenced by council.
as a member of council, I should be able to have an opinion that they could consider.
That's not how committee works.
And so when does this come before council?
It will not come to council.
Well, then I demand to be able to speak here as a member of council, because in my opinion, as I stated to Kenny, it was a very poor use of this property.
You can't speak
All right.
as counselor to the committee.
I'll speak as a
Private citizen. All right.
I've known Kenny since high school, and his family. He's done work for me over the years, as did his father, reputable local firm. I remember distinctly when the town public works facility was at the north part of that property. And when we moved to the new facility, Beck's Construction bought that, and it became all Beck's Construction. We have, as I understand, from what Sean just said, our town's official plan indicates that it is encouraged for that area to become residential in time. And I also understand from reading the newspaper and watching what goes on in council over the years, that the soccer field next to this particular location has been discussed, suggested, reserved, whatever you want to call it, for residential in time. As we're all aware, I guess, we have a new arena in the north end of town. And it's no secret that the entire area north of that, well, not the entire area of the 401, but a section north of that will become playing fields, 1, 2 or 3 of which I believe is soccer fields, which makes that soccer field redundant. And that means that within the relatively near future, I understand council is going to be looking at developing that as residential. It only makes sense to me as a member of the community or as a potential purchaser of a home in that area that it would be far more likely, or I would be far more likely to buy something there if we didn't have Beck's Construction or storage facilities in that location. If they were residential as well, like what our official plan, as Sean has mentioned, it would be far more desirable. Infrastructure costs an awful lot of money these days, and I understand, again, from reading the newspapers, that the town has sold acres and acres of property to developers in the last couple of years, both north of the 401 and south of Churchill Road and south of the railroad tracks, west of Boundary Street. But the problem there is the cost of building infrastructure in those places is so expensive that nothing has happened. In the location that Mr. Beck and his family own, the infrastructure already exists. Georgina Street has sewer and water on it. Florence Street has sewer and water on it.
Mr. McConnell, just sorry to interrupt you, but we're here to discuss the minor variance.
Okay.
Okay, and I appreciate your comments, but we need to move on with the agenda.
Excuse me, but I'm making a comment as regards, I'm objecting to this.
Okay,
And I've explained to Mr. Beck why I'm objecting to it. And my comment to him was that the town of Prescott, before this, should have been in contact with him to see if they could arrange a trade in property somewhere in our industrial park for him to build his structures, his structures. And in return, we would get the southern part of this area, which is already serviced and more desirable for residential. It has residential.
this is his
flooding down the
property,
west.
right? This is
That's
his
correct.
property.
It's going to have residential property on the east. It only makes sense when there's already infrastructure there
Mhm.
to reserve this for residential. And speaking with Kenny, was quite interested in pursuing that
Mhm.
swap at the time.
Okay, but we're not talking about that today. We're talking about the minor variance.
But my
Right.
point is that if another alternative existed, it would make sense for this committee to defer this decision to another time in order for the town staff to discuss with Mr. Beck whether we could find another spot
Mhm.
and do the swap, which I think, given the emphasis on residential, will be better for everybody all the way around.
Does anyone on the committee have any comments? Yes, Daniel?
Nothing precludes Mr. Beck from not building that. I mean, even though the variance will be approved or not, he can do as he pleases with the property. He doesn't have to build it tomorrow. He can wait till there's a
Well, that
decision.
was what I was telling Lee, but we're at the point where I've done all my research, to put the money together, exactly for the future of my son. will-
I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying that that's your option.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So if
You know,
you,
if there's some way that, you know, I'm still gonna run my business, of course, for whatever length of time. I was gonna do this when I got married in 1991. Should have done it, right? I mean, it's huge. But, you know, in the future, I get more up.
Mhm.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Jim?
If I may, thank you,
Yeah.
Chair. Just one thing about residential use of the property. It is beside the rail corridor, which is
Mhm.
basically an industrial use. It's been used for industrial purposes for many years, from what I hear. The town's used it. A number of other people use. This would be considered brownfield in terms of residential development. So at some point, if somebody's going to use that for residential purposes, you'd need to do some environmental assessment on the property before it's used for residential purposes. I personally don't see the development that's on the table today would preclude the future use of this property as residential. I mean, you'd have to do something with that structure that's there. Until I heard Mr. Beck say he wanted to build more of them. That's, you know, they're storage structures on a cement pad. So if in the future there, you know, the ESA is done that determines that this is appropriate for residential purposes, I think it could be used for residential purposes at some point in the future.
Mhm. Any other discussion? Do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to mention that R1 special policy area is in reflection of the fact that there are industrial uses along the tracks. It fully supports expanding those uses, continuing those uses, that sort of thing. Council has certainly not made any decision on the property to the east of what to do with that. Nor has council given any instruction for exploring a land swap or anything like that. So also a note of the industrial area, all is either sold or is under a sales agreement with no excess property left.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that's not true.
I'll now call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 5.3 is a minor variance application for consent application for 202-210 King Street West and 241 and 253 Center Street. And I have a recommendation that reads that the Committee of Adjustment approve the minor variance MV 2024-003 and MV 2024-004 for the properties 202 and 210 King Street West and 241 and 243 Center Street with the following conditions. The balance, if any, of outstanding taxes, including penalties and interests, shall be paid to the town of Prescott. That the existing parking spaces be clearly identified by the end of the project. That all tenants' leases contain clear language that parking is not provided on site. And that should it be needed, other solutions will need to be considered, as street parking overnight is not allowed anywhere in the town between November and April of each year. Signage placed appropriately around the building, reminding tenants and visitors of acceptable locations to park, especially during overnight hours. And that the interior staircase in 210 King Street West, main floor, to the second floor be repurposed by utilizing elements including handrail and balusters around the entire project site, specifically on the second and third floors. Do I have a mover and a seconder for discussion purposes? Frank? Sean Merriman, Manager of Building and Bylaw, will speak to the report. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. If this property looks familiar, it should, because it was here just back in November, on November 30th, and it's brought back forward to you because, like many projects that are this intensive and this complete, you can't always see everything that's going to happen when you get into the renovation part of the building. So since this was in front of you in November, I can advise you that the project has been moving along at almost breakneck speed. These days, I think I almost live there inspecting it as the building inspector. However, when they got into it, they realized two things. The layout that they envisioned for 210 of having an apartment building that went on the second and to the first floor was not very practical. They ended up with quite a bit of what you call dead space. They were basically going to end up with like 2 living rooms and everything and really no other purpose to it. And the heritage staircase that was in it that was so impressive to the owner and that he wanted to save, he realized that only one person would ever get to see it, and that's the person who ever occupied that building, like that apartment itself. The other thing that happened is the longtime commercial tenant that was in 206 gave notice that they were no longer going to be utilizing the property. And the developer realized again that most of the opportunities for commercial space on King Street were better suited having a smaller footprint that then made it more reasonable for it to be rented. The actual change is going from 12 apartments now to 14. However, due to the fact that I kind of screwed up when I gave this report back in November, the actual parking spaces that are required hasn't really changed, but it is brought back forth so that everyone could see that, you know, the development that's changed so that you would know. And the only other condition that we changed from previous November 30th is the fact that the staircase will have to be utilized in the common areas on the second and third floor of the building at the completion of it. They also redesigned the parking spaces and managed to get a 5th parking spot. That's why the relief for parking has not really changed. Again, all the same arguments that were there in November. This is a great use of a building that's known as the Davis Building. It's 3/4 of that building. It will be certainly well utilized by both the tenants and the 3 commercial spaces that are being made on the main, on the main floor. And I do have the developer and his planner on Zoom tonight, should anyone have any questions of them. But after circulating, again, it was posted within the required time. All the people within 60 meters were notified, and no one has reached out to the town at this point unless they're here tonight. And it was circulated to all the departments within the town. And at this point, no concerns. In fact, one of the things that changed is originally they were going to sprinkler the main staircase because they didn't have a second exit out of the building, and they managed to reutilize the space so that now there will be a proper fire escape off the third floor coming down off the back of the building. And that's part of the other reason why plans changed, in order to utilize that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on item 5.2? Yes, Louis?
Through you, Madam Chair, how are they going to achieve the parking spaces that they need?
So parking spaces.
Okay, so there is 5 on the site. They've entered into long-term lease for 3 more. And the other people that rent the apartments will be advised that there is no parking. And should they wish to, they can either approach the town, because the town has parking spots over in the gravel parking lot. We have parking up here. They can find other private uses if they want, or they'll just have to accept that when they rent that place, there is no parking spot with it.
Jim?
Yeah, thank you. I just wish, through your chair to Sean, could you clarify what exact variance did we approve in November? Was it to 4 spaces and now we're approving? If you could just clarify that, I'm just a little confused.
Okay, so what it was relief from the normal parking requirements. And the relief was from the normal parking requirements that were required, which I believe in that report I had said 17, which is still the same in this report, down to 4. And again, dealing with the fact that those other 13 spaces would be dealt with clearly in the lease and clearly with signage around the building, and that they would have to find either alternative places to park, or they would have to find another place to live. Like they wouldn't rent it to begin with.
So we've added, if I may, Chair, we've added conditions to this variance?
The same as the one as
Same as one
before.
before, but we were down to 4 before?
Yes, now we're up to 5.
Up to 5. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. I was wondering about the parking lot across the street at the Shoppers Drug Mart. Is that municipal? Is that belongs to the town? So is that a possibility for a tenant to rent a spot there?
They can approach the town. The town does have handicap spots in that parking lot that we lease out as required.
Okay.
But one of the conditions, or at least policies that's always been on that lot, is that you had to be handicapped and have mobility issues before we rented it to you. Anyone that was found to have normal mobility could go to one of the other municipal lots and walk a little farther. But the concept was to keep it for the people that needed it the worst.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion?
Just
No.
change the number of apartments.
It is, but you're being kept informed, so.
Yeah, thank you. I'll now call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Does anyone have any new business they would like to speak? No. Is there any media present? No. Item number 8 is adjournment. I have a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment meeting be adjourned, and the time is, yes,
If I might, I could just like to ask a question. Regarding the lot on Dibble Street again, sitting here thinking, the house that I own was built 120 years ago, sitting on the lot. It only has a 1 foot to 1.5 foot to the side yard. Is there any regulation today concerning 2 houses together? But it sounds like you're saying 4 feet on either side, that would be an 8 foot easement between 2 houses? Am I making sense here, Dave?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, sir. And the reason why the 1.2 meters is in there is in case anyone ever got permission to build right up to the property line. 1.2 meters is the fire separation that's needed.
Okay. All right.
So and even that can be made smaller, but then you have to construct in such a way so that the fire doesn't spread from one building to the next.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sean. All right, we'll get back to item number 8 is adjournment. I have a recommendation. Yes, you have a question?
No, I'm
Oh. I have a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment meeting be adjourned, and the time is 5:42. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this motion?
There you go.
All right, there you go. All right, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.